صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for attending tonight's program. Inshallah, we will be having one of our remaining nights for these Ramadan lecture series. And of course, as always, we like to remind the brothers and sisters that we are accepting food donations near the entrances. We have these baskets where you can donate non-perishable food items. And we hope, inshallah, that we continue to see people attend these events, inshallah. That way we can do more of them, inshallah, for the upcoming programs as well. And with that, please welcome Sheikh Hamam with Allah Salawat.
In honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen, أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى أبيك وحبيبك أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا نجاة الأمة، غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. In honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen, أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
The narrations of Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi alayhim have greatly stressed on loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the effects of loving the Almighty. For the past 2 lectures we've been mentioning certain verses or narrations that touched on this important topic. What's interesting though is that in some narrations the Imam, the infallible Imam, goes to the point of saying that religion is nothing but love. He summarizes the religion of Islam with one word, and that is the word of hub. He says, هَلِ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. Is religion anything but love? This is quite interesting because, as you may know, in Islam, is a deep and it's a deep religion, and it's a religion that contains a lot of information, oceans of information. For example, when we come to the world of beliefs, we find many Quranic verses and oceans of narrations that touch upon what? Beliefs. That speak about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the angels, or the prophets, or the imams, or the day of judgment. Similarly, when we come to the world of jurisprudence, we find that there are a lot of details regarding what? Regarding ahkam, regarding the Islamic laws. You find about 500 verses in the Quran called ayat al-ahkam, the verses that speak about Islamic laws. As for when we come to the narrations, you have thousands of narrations, plenty of narrations that mention the details of our Islamic jurisprudence, such as the details regarding salat, or siyam, or marriage, or divorce, or any other topic. Last but not least, when we come to the world of morals, we also see plenty of Quranic verses and plenty of narrations that speak about the traits of a mu'min, the good traits that one should acquire or one should have, and the bad traits, the vices that one should purify himself from, the vices that he should get rid of. And so, when you see that Islam is a deep religion that provides us with a fortune of knowledge, it becomes quite difficult for someone like me or you to summarize Islam in one word, or to summarize Islam in a sentence. It's difficult. But the Imams ﷺ have done so. They've summarized the whole religion in a word. In some traditions, as we said, they said, هَلِ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. Is religion anything but love? This is a very deep statement. Because if you think about it, Mahabbatullah, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leads you what? Leads you to loving His close servants. In fact, loving anything or anyone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. Similarly, if you have true love of God, then you will hate anything or anyone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates. So when you see that Allah ta'ala loves Ahlul Bayt, you're going to love Ahlul Bayt. When you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves, for example, the believers, you will also love the believers. Allah Azza wa Jal loves, mathalan, for example, salat, prayer, or fasting, you're going to love it as well. When you see that Allah Azza wa Jal hates the devil, hates, for example, Abu Jahl, hates the enemies of the prophets or the Imams alayhimus salam, then you will hate those enemies as well. So when you have true love for God subhanahu wa ta'ala, that love will lead you to loving whatever Allah loves and hating whatever Allah hates, including what? Including actions. Loving the actions that Allah loves and hating the actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hates. This is the stepstone for what? For submission. It's the stepstone to acquire absolute submission and to submit for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in regards to any command that He directs at us. This is why we said in the past few lectures that we need to work on our love for Allah Azza wa Jal. The more we increase our love for God Azza wa Jal, then the more submissive we will be. One might say, where did Ahlul Bayt say, alayhimus salam, that religion is love? They said this word in multiple instances. Let me share one tradition with you tonight. In Bihar al-Anwar, Allama al-Majlisi rahimahullah cites the book Tafsir al-Ayashi. There's a narration by a man called Burayd al-Ajali. Burayd says, I was in the presence of Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam when a man came from Khurasan. The man, it seems that the man was walking, as in he crossed large distances, hundreds or thousands of kilometers as he was walking. So the man entered upon the Imam, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, and when he entered, he uncovered his legs. Burayd says his legs were covered with dust or mud or something similar to that. And he told the Imam alayhi salam, he told him, I've come all the way from wherever I was, in other words, Khurasan, because I love you, Ahlul Bayt. The one thing which brought me here and made me cross large distances was your love, Ahlul Bayt, salawatullahi alayhim. Here, Imam al-Baqir, salawatullah alayhi, said a word, said a comforting word to that man. It seems he wanted to comfort him and tell him that your reward is in the hands of Allah. Allah Ta'ala will compensate you for what you've done. You are not at loss. What did he say? He said, Wallahi law ahabbana hajar hasharahu Allahu ma'ana. I swear by Allah, if a stone loved us Ahlul Bayt, Allah Ta'ala would place that stone with us on the day of judgment. Meaning, O Khurasani, you have not lost anything. If you are truthful in your claim when you claim to love us, then prepare yourself for heaven on the day of judgment, you will be with us. I swear by Allah, if a stone loved us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would place that stone with us on the day of resurrection. Then the Imam said, وَهَلِ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. Is religion anything other than love? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهِ. Say, if you love Allah, then follow me, and Allah will love you. And He says, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They love those who migrate to them. These are the words of the Imam alayhi salam. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about the Ansar and how they welcomed the Muhajirin, the immigrants to Medina. Then the Imam concludes once again saying what? Saying, وَهَلِ الدِّينُ إِلَّا الْحُبِّ. Is religion anything but love? This statement in itself reminds us, brothers and sisters, that working on our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is essential. It will help us become more submissive. In fact, if we come to Dua Ya Udati, the supplication that we're explaining in these days and nights of the month of Ramadan, there's a very interesting statement at the end of the supplication, near the end. The Imam says what? He says alayhi salam, Allahumma mla' qalbi hubban lak. Oh Allah, fill my heart with your love. When we read that, we might say, MashaAllah, what a beautiful statement. It is beautiful, but it's also very deep. It needs thinking. Tell me, if you have a container that's filled with water, is it possible to instill any other type of liquid in it without removing the water? Is it? No, it's not. Because the container is what? It's filled with water. So if you want to instill, let's say, olive oil in the container, you have to remove some water at least to be able to place an amount of olive oil in that container. When we're told by the Imam, when we're taught by the Imam to ask Allah to fill our hearts with His love, can that heart that has become filled with Allah's love contain any type of other love? No, it can't. Unless the love that lies in your heart flows perfectly or coincides with Allah's love. In better terms, if you love something or someone, you love that thing or that someone because it's part of loving Allah. For example, we love Rasulullah We love Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ahl al-Bayt, the prophets, Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. That love is a result of what? Of loving Allah. You love your believing brothers and sisters in faith. That's a result of what? Loving Allah. However, a heart that's filled with Allah's love will not have any type of love in it that contradicts loving Allah. Such as loving the devil. Such as loving indecencies. Such as loving dunya daniya, the low world. So when the Imam teaches me and you to say, Allahumma amla qalbi hubban lak, that's a big statement. The Imam alayhi salam is teaching us that we should aim towards that goal. Right now, I believe we all have an amount of Allah's love in our hearts. Lillahi alhamd. Right? But are our hearts filled with His love? I don't know. Let's make that our goal. We want to attain, we want to achieve what? That goal. We want to fill our hearts with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One thing's for sure. Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam, their hearts were filled with Allah's love. They were filled. If you open the heart of Rasulullah or Ali or Zahra or any of the Imams alayhim salam, you will not find anything other than Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, Allah's love. However, their love was truly indescribable. The likes of me cannot comprehend the amount of love they had for God subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll give you a proof. I'll give you a passage that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu was-salam utters when he recites al-Munajat al-Sha'baniyya. I'm pretty sure many of you, if not all, recited this supplication during the month of Sha'ban. Al-Munajat al-Sha'baniyya was given to us by who? By the martyr of the month of Ramadan, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salatu was-salam. And by the Imams. The tradition says that the Imams would read this munajat. So you had multiple Imams, if not all, who would read al-Munajat al-Sha'baniyya. Alright. What does the Imam say in al-Munajat al-Sha'baniyya? Before I tell you what he says, I need you to focus with me to understand a particular point. Once that's understood, we'll be ready to hear what he says. If we look at the state of mankind, the state of the humans, we realize that in many cases, the love we have for another person is conditional. Conditional? Yes, conditional. In what sense? It's restricted to good treatment. As in, you'll have a father, for example, who loves his son, or a son who loves his father, or a spouse who loves his or her spouse, or a friend who loves his friend, etc. In many cases, or most cases, that type of love is conditioned. It's conditional. Meaning, I will continue to love my son, or my spouse, or my friend, so long that this individual treats me well. But if my beloved begins mistreating me, swearing at me, cursing me, and treating me in a very disrespectful manner, such that he turns my life into a living hell, the love I have for that person might change. Right or wrong? In many cases it will change. It will change from love to hate. And you see it. You see it in the outer world. There are cases where two people, for example, get married. At start, they love each other. But they get to a point where one of them or both of them hate each other. Why? Because of the mistreatment. Because of the oppression that was done to each other. Or that was done by one of them to the other. So in many cases, our love is conditional. So long that you treat me well, I'll love you. But if you keep on mistreating me, at a certain point, I might lose my love for you. That is the reality. Question. if someone wanted to hurt you, is there any better way to hurt someone than placing them in Jahannam? What's your question? Is there any better way to hurt someone than placing them in Jahannam? Jahannam is the abode of what? The abode of punishment. The abode of torture. It has unbearable and unimaginable punishments. Physical punishments, emotional punishments, spiritual punishments, you name it. It's the abode of torture. Thus, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they teach us to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to save us from Jahannam. You might tell me, where are you going with this? I'm going to the passage of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Me and you, if someone keeps on mistreating us or hurting us, we'll lose our love for that individual, right? What does Amir al-Mu'mineen tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in al-Munajat al-Sha'baniyah? He says, Ilahi in akhadtani bijurmi akhadtuka bi'afwik. My God, if you hold me accountable on the day of judgment for my crime and you want to punish me, then I will ask you to pardon me. وَإِنْ أَخَذْتَنِي بِذُنُوبِي أَخَذْتُكَ بِمَغْفِرَتِكَ. And if you hold me accountable for my sins and want to punish me for my sins, I will ask you to forgive me. Then he says, وَإِنْ أَدْخَلْتَنِي النَّارِ أَعْلَمْتُ أَهْلَهَا أَنِّي أُحِبُّكَ. And if you bring me into Jahannam, if you make me from the dwellers of hellfire, I will tell the dwellers of hellfire that I love you. You might think Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is speaking in a figurative manner. No, he's not. He's speaking reality. He's an imam, he's infallible. He's speaking reality. He's telling you, my love for Allah Ta'ala is not conditional. I will love God in all cases. Ya Ali, even if Allah Ta'ala puts you in hellfire, yes. Why? Because he knows his Lord. He knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows Allah's ultimate beauty and ultimate perfection. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places anyone in hellfire, it's because that someone, that individual deserves hellfire. It's because that someone did injustice to himself, which led him to hellfire. Their love is truly mesmerizing. He tells him, if you place me in Jahannam, I will not lose my love for you. I will tell the dwellers of Jahannam, Shimr, Qabil, Fir'aun, and others, as for me, I still love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you realize that his love, the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, was not conditional, unconditional, you acquire a better understanding as to why Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam never failed Rasulullah. As to why Amir al-Mu'mineen was always ready to uphold the command of Allah and the command of Rasulullah. Even if he faced frightening challenges, no, life-threatening challenges, Amir al-Mu'mineen was up for it. He was ready to do anything for God and for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The poet addresses Amir al-Mu'mineen with beautiful lines of poetry. He tells him, النبي لو رادك نجات تطلع من أربع جهات. Tells him, Ya Ali, if the Prophet ever called you for help, ever called you to protect him, you would emerge from 4 directions at once. From the front, from the back, from the right, from the left. Labbayka ya Rasulullah. How can I help you, O Messenger of God? His love was truly mesmerizing. In fact, everything about this man is mesmerizing. Salawatullah wa salamuhu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. He faced unbelievable challenges. and he was successful in each challenge. One day, a Jewish scholar came to Imam Ali alayhi salam. The tradition says this man was the head of the Jews, the chief. He came to Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, and he asked him about the successors of the prophets, the direct successor of a prophet. How many times is the successor tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the life of the prophet and after his death? The Imam salawatullah alayhi told him that Allah ta'ala tests the successor 14 times. 7 times during the life of the prophet and 7 times after his death. And so he went on explaining to that Jewish man about his own tests. How did Allah test Ali ibn Abi Talib? Remember, here we're talking about major tests. Major tests that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wasalam faced. The tradition is in Al-Khisad for Sheikh al-Saduq rahimahullah, but it's quite lengthy. So I want to shed light on one test. One test that the Imam salawatullah alayhi mentioned to that Jewish man. He told him amongst the 7 tests that he went through when Rasulullah was alive sallallahu alayhi wa was the test regarding migration. He told him Quraysh kept on thinking, how can they kill Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa They kept on pondering between them and themselves, what can we do to get rid of Muhammad? And so they would come out with plots to kill the Prophet. The Imam says the last time they gathered before the migration was when they gathered at a place called Dar al-Nadwa. They gathered, and amongst them was Iblis al-Mal'oon. Imam Ali says this. Iblis, Shaitan, may Allah curse him, was present in the form of Awar Thaqif. Who's Awar Thaqif? It said he's Mughira ibn Shu'bah. So Shaitan, the devil, took the form of Mughira ibn Shu'bah, and he was present in that gathering. I believe you remember, we said when we spoke about Lut alayhi salam, the story of Lut, that the Shaitan has the power to change forms with Allah's permission subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he cannot take the forms of the infallibles alayhim salam. Nonetheless, the Imam says they were gathered at Dar al-Nadwa, and so at that point they came up with the following plot. Let us bring a man from every tribe of Quraysh, and let each man take his sword and strike the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the same time. All of them should come to Rasulullah as he's on his bed, strike him collectively at once, and kill him. Once that happens, we, the people of Quraysh, each tribe will defend the person who participated in killing Rasulullah. As in, each tribe will defend their own relative. Which relative? The one who participated in the Prophet's killing sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We will not surrender him to Banu Hashim, and if we do so, then the blood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be lost. As in, Banu Hashim will not be able to seek vengeance from all the tribes of Quraysh. This was their plot. The Imam says alayhi salam, at that point Jabra'il alayhi salam descended on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he informed him of their plot. And he informed him of the day in which they will gather, and the hour in which they shall come to Rasulullah. He informed him of the night, on which night will they gather, and which hour, at which hour will they come to the Prophet's bed sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. Then the Imam says, then Jibreel commanded the Prophet to leave. As in, he told him, Allah Ta'ala commands you to leave, Ya Rasulullah. So at that time, he left at the proper time to the cave. The Imam says, before he left, Rasulullah came to me. And he told me, I want you to sleep in my bed, Ya Ali. I want you to lie down in my bed. Why? So that the polytheists think that the person who's on the bed of Rasulullah is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. The Imam says, alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Prophet told him to lie on his bed and to protect him with his own self. So what did you do, O Imam? The Imam says, فَأَسْرَعْتُ إِلَى ذَلِكَ. And so I rushed at answering the call of Rasulullah, at answering his request. مُطِيعًا لَهُ. I was obedient to the Prophet. مَسْرُورًا لِنَفْسِي بِأَنْ أُقْتَلَ دُونَهُ. I was rejoicing. Why are you rejoicing? Why were you rejoicing? He says, I was rejoicing because I was thinking that I will be killed for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in defense of the Prophet. He was happy. Salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. And so he says, I slept on the Prophet's bed, I lied down on his bed, the Prophet left, alayhi salam, and then the polytheists came to me. When they entered the room, I stood. He was outnumbered. They entered with their swords. He said, I stood and I fought them with my sword and pushed them away. And I did what Allah knows and what the people know. In that talking to the Jewish man, the tradition says there was an audience. There were companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen present. So every time he would mention one of the tests he went through and what he did, he would turn to his companions and he would tell them, isn't it so? As in, have I said the truth? And they'd say, yes, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, it is. Indeed, this is what happened. So he turns to them after he mentions the second test and he says, Alaysa kadhalik? Isn't this what happened? And they tell him, yes, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Alayhi salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, Ali's love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi was beyond impeccable. Hence he never failed the Prophet. Hence you always find him supporting the Prophet even when the Prophet is abandoned. Which event should I remember at the moment? And which event should I forget? Should we mention what happened in Badr? When he slayed half of those who were killed from the polytheists? Or should we mention what happened in Uhud? When the majority of the Muslim army gave up. They left, leaving Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam defended the Prophet. The Imam was facing an army on his own. Imagine that. One army against Ali bin Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. And he kept on fighting until his sword broke into 3 pieces. Then the Prophet gave him the unbreakable sword. Dhul Fiqar. Jabra'il alayhi salam was thrilled upon seeing Ali's sacrifice, Ali's resilience and patience. And so he called out in a voice that the people heard, La sayfa illa dhul fiqar. There is no sword other than dhul fiqar. Wala fata illa Ali. And there is no warrior other than Ali salawatullah salamu alayhi. Bear in mind that the challenges he went through after Rasulullah's death were not any less heartbreaking or any less difficult than the challenges he went through during the Prophet's life. But he succeeded in each challenge, alayhi salam. How did the nation repay him? The nation repaid him by abandoning him. The majority. There was a minority who loved Amir al-Mu'mineen, who supported him. But the majority of the Muslims, unfortunately, they repaid the Imam by abandoning him. Some had profound hate towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. Some cursed him. Some fought him and wanted his head. And on a night like tonight, Abdul Rahman bin Muljam la'anahullah strikes Amir al-Mu'mineen on his head. He fulfills the dreams of the enemies of Ali. Many people wanted to strike that head, but who can strike it? Who can kill Amir al-Mu'mineen? You know, Muawiyah and Siffin, when he witnessed how Imam Ali was fighting. He was about 61 years old. When he witnessed how Ali was fighting, he was surprised. He told them, isn't there anyone who can kill this man? No, Ya Muawiyah. No one can kill him. Who can kill Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battlefield? Yes, they killed him in Salat. Because in Salat, he's only focused on who? On Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Lord that he greatly loves, that he deeply loves. You might believe that Ibn Muljam la'anahullah was the only killer of Ali, but I want you to listen to the following words. I want you to keep in mind that Ibn Muljam was the person who directly killed the Imam. He's the one who gave him the blow, which led to his martyrdom. But in reality, there were groups. There was a movement, or maybe multiple movements, who were supporting Ibn Muljam. So there's not one killer of Ali. There are killers of Amir al-Mu'mineen. There's one who gives him the blow, but that one is supported, he's backed by other individuals, by a group of haters of Imam Ali salawatullah alayhi. Hence on tonight, on a night like tonight, the night of the 19th of the month of Ramadan, one of the recommended deeds is to say what? To say 100 times, Allahumma al'an qatalata Amir al-Mu'mineen. Qatalata. Oh Allah, curse the killers, not the killer, the killers of the commander of the faithful alayhi salawatullah. Enough has been said. It is time to move to Al-Kufa, to hear some of the heartbreaking incidents of tonight. What happens tonight? Where is Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi? In his last month of Ramadan, the tradition says Imam Ali alayhi salam would break his fast at the houses of his children. One day he would go to Al-Hasan, one day he'd go to Al-Husayn, one day he'd go to Zainab, and one day he would go to Kulthum, his other daughter from Fatima al-Zahra alayhimus salam jami'an. It seems that Amir al-Mu'mineen was bidding farewell to his children because he knew this was the last month of Ramadan in this world. Tonight specifically, he was with Kulthum alayhi salam. When the time of Salat arrived, Imam Ali alayhi salam rose, he prayed, and after he prayed, Kulthum brought him his food. Let us look at what Ali is going to eat tonight. She brings him a tray that contains a bowl of milk, a bit of salt, and 2 loaves of bread. This was his iftar. So she presents it to Imam Ali salawatullah alayhi. When he looks at the food, Amir al-Mu'mineen begins shaking his head. It's as if he's disappointed, displeased. And he begins crying loudly and bitterly. He tells her, my daughter, are you offering your father 2 types of food with bread? My daughter, do you want my stance in front of Allah on the day of judgment to be prolonged? My daughter, I want to follow the footsteps of my brother and cousin Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Then he tells her, I will not eat. I swear by Allah, I will not eat until you remove one of the 2 types of food other than the bread, the salt or the milk. So Kulthum salamullah alayha removes the milk. She removes it. The Imam eats a bit of salt and 1 loaf of bread. Then he rises and he begins praying. He begins worshipping Allah Ta'ala, going to ruku or sujood, standing up, sitting down. He would constantly worship God Azza wa Jal and would constantly remember Him on this night, as in he would mention Allah Azza wa Jal. But surprisingly, Amir al-Mu'mineen tonight was mentioning words that are said usually when a person faces difficulty or faces a tragedy. He would say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely we belong to Allah, and surely to Him we shall return. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-ali al-azim. There is no power, nor might save in Allah, the Great, the Exalted. He would say, Allahumma barik lana fil maut. Oh Allah, bless our death. Yes, Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, knew that his days were coming to an end. Soon, Ibn Muljam will give him that strike. The Imam salamullah alayhi kept on worshipping God. After a while, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam fell asleep. When he fell asleep, he woke up, and he woke up startled. So Kulthum says he gathered his children, and he told them, I just saw a frightening dream, a scary dream. And I want you to hear it. I want to mention the dream to you. So they told him, go ahead, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what did you see? He said, I just saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ajib, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Rasulullah is your beloved brother. Rasulullah is your prophet. Why would you feel scared upon seeing Rasulullah? Listen to his words. He says, I just saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and he was telling me, Ya Ali, O Abul Hasan, soon you shall be with us. The most wrecked human being will come to you and will strike you, and due to his strike, your beard will be dyed with your blood. Oh, I am eager to see you. I want to be with you, Ya Ali. And you shall be with us in the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan. Come to us. Hurry, Ya Ali. For what we have for you is better for you and more lasting. Tell me what happened to your hearts right now when you heard that dream. Your hearts broke, right? Imagine what happened to the sons of Ali and his daughters. What happened to them when they heard that dream? The tradition says they burst in tears. They began wailing and crying for their father, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhim. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen calmed them down. He told them to be silent, and he began commanding them to do good and to avoid what is evil. On this night, Amir al-Mu'mineen would come out every hour or so. He would come out of his room or house. He would look at the sky and he would say, I swear by Allah, tonight is the night. Tonight is the night my beloved Rasulullah promised me. Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Then he would go back to his worship. He kept on worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mentioning the Almighty. Kulthum says, salamullah alayha, when I saw him in that state, when I saw that the Imam was not sleeping, and he was agitated, he was continuously mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I stayed up with him. And I came to him. I told him, Father, why is it that you don't sleep tonight? What's happening? He told me, daughter, your father faced frightening challenges in his life. And he slayed warriors, but never did he experience fear. Allahu Akbar. Never. It's as if he's telling her, I killed Marhab, I killed Amr. I did not experience fear on that day. However, tonight I am experiencing fear. He says, I've never experienced such fear before. What scares Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam? He's not scared of Marhab or Amr or Talha al-Abdari. He's scared of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the one thing which scares him. He fears his Lord, although he has immense love for Allah. And inshallah we're going to explain in the upcoming nights the meaning of fearing Allah. Why does Ali fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That's the one thing which scares Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Or possibly he was referring to the future of the nation, as in he was scared of what will take place once he is killed. What will happen to Hassan and Hussein, Ahlul Bayt, and the rest of the Muslimin? Then Amir al-Mu'mineen said, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Surely we belong to Allah, and surely to Him we shall return. And so Kulthum told him, Father, why is it that you've been mourning yourself ever since the beginning of the night? Why is it that you've been informing us of your death ever since the beginning of the night? And so Amir al-Mu'mineen told her, Ya Bunayya, Ya Bunayya, قد اقترب الأجال وانقطع الأمل. Daughter, my days are coming to an end, and soon I will depart from this world. At that moment, Kulthum Salamullahi alayha cried, Amirul Mu'min, daughter, do not cry, for I have only said what the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, and his family told me. Ajarakumullah, Ajarakallah ya baqiyat Allah. Then the Imam told her, daughter, when the time of Adhan approaches, then notify me. Kulthum alayhi salam says, I began observing the horizon when I saw that the time of Adhan had drawn near. I came to my father and I notified him. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam rose, performed wudu, and he wore his clothing. Then he descended to the courtyard. The tradition says there were geese inside the courtyard that were gifted to Hassan or Hussein alayhim as-salam. These geese had not shouted before that day, but subhanallah, on this night when the geese see the commander of the faithful, they begin flapping their wings and shouting in the face of Ali salawatullahi alayhi, Allahu Akbar ya Ali. Even the animals care for you. Even the animals love you. It's as if the geese were telling him, Ya Ali, do not leave tonight, for we fear for you. Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam said at that point, La ilaha illallah, sawa'ihun tatba'uha nawa'ih. There is no God other than Allah. These are shouts that will be followed by cries. And tomorrow morning, the divine decree of Allah will reveal itself, will be revealed. Ajarakumullah. Then he turned to Kulthum alayhi salam and he told her, daughter, I ask you for my sake, I ask you to set these geese free. My daughter, you have imprisoned an animal that cannot speak to you and inform you that it is hungry or thirsty. So feed it and provide it with water, or set it free so it may eat from the herbs of the land. I say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, how merciful are you? You tell Kulthum alayhi salam to take care of the geese on the night of your strike, Ya Ali. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why weren't your enemies merciful to you? Why didn't they have mercy on Hassan, Hussein, Zainab and Kulthum salamullahi alayhim, and Abbas and Muhammad alayhim as-salam? Ajarakumullah. Then the Imam went to the door. He tried to open the door, but the door caught on to his garment and made it fall. Allahu Akbar. And so Amir al-Mu'mineen opened the the door. In another narration it says that he took the door out of the wall. Then he placed his garment on himself. He tied his garment and he recited the following lines of poetry. أشدد حيازي موت فإن الموت لاقيك. Prepare yourself for death, will meet you. ولا تجزع من الموت إذا حل بناديك. Do not feel impatient on the day when death settles beside you. كما أضحكك الدهر كذاك الدهر يبكيك. Just as life made you laugh one day life will make you cry. أجركم الله. Then the Imam went to the mosque. Kulthum alayha salam hurried to Imam al-Hassan. She told him, brother, tonight your father did so and so. She mentioned what Imam Ali did and what he said, and so she told him, brother, go to your father. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam went to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he found him before the Imam entered the mosque. They had Imam Ali asked Imam al-Hassan, my son, why are you here? Imam al-Hassan told him, Father, I want to go with you to your prayer niche. I want to be with you in the mosque. So the Imam told him, بحقي عليك إلا ما رجعت. He told him, for my sake, oh my son, I want you to retreat. Go back, Ya Hassan. Yes, he did not want Hassan alayhi salam beside him at that dreadful moment. Ajarakumullah. Al-Hassan alayhi salam returned to Kulthum. Yes, this was the body of Al-Hassan, the body of treated, but it is as if I see the soul of Hassan with Imam Ali, as if I see the souls of Hussein, Zainab, Kulthum, Abbas and Muhammad clinging on to Imam Ali alayhi salam. They're all awaiting the dreadful moment in which Jibreel alayhi salam will mourn the commander. Ajarakumullah. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam entered the mosque. He performed a few rak'ahs, he prayed. Then he ascended the minaret to perform adhan. The tradition says when Ali salawatullahi alayhi would perform adhan, the voice of Ali would penetrate through all the houses of Kufa, which means this was the last adhan the people of Kufa heard from Imam Ali alayhi salam. Ajarakumullah. He placed his fingers in his ears, he cleared his voice, and he began the adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. The Imam alayhi salam completed his adhan. Then he descended from the minaret and he came to the people in the mosque. Out of his beautiful morals, he would wake up those who would be sleeping in the mosque, telling them, rise, may Allah bless you, rise for salat. Ajarakumullah. He came to Ibn Muljam la'anahullah, who was awaiting our Imam. He was sleeping on his belly with his sword under his clothing. Amir al-Mu'mineen looked at him. He told him, oh, you who is in front of me, do not sleep in this manner. For this is the sleep of the devil and the sleep of the dwellers of hellfire. Rather sleep on your right side, for it is the sleep of the scholars, or on your left, for it is the sleep of the wise men, or on your back, for it is the sleep of the prophets. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen told him, you have intended on committing a crime, that causes the skies to split and the earth to split open and divide and the mountains to crumble in pieces. And if I wanted, I would have informed you of what lies under your clothing. أجرك الله يا بقية الله، أجرك الله يا صاحب الزمان. Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi alayh then went to his prayer niche. He performed takbir, Allahu Akbar, as if I hear the seven skies saying takbir with the Imam. Ibn Muljam la'anahullah rushed. He knew this was his opportunity, and so he stood behind the pillar beside which Amir al-Mu'mineen was praying. Imam Ali salawatullahi alayh went into ruku', then he came out of ruku', then he went into sujood. In his first sajda, Ibn Muljam la'anahullah rushed towards the Imam. He took his sword, he lifted it, and he called out, Al-Hukmu Lillah, judgment belongs to Allah, not to you, O Ali, and not to your companions. Ajarakum Allah. When Amir al-Mu'mineen lifted him, Ibn Muljam struck him on his head. Aywa aliyah wa imamah wa Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen Salamullah alayhi fell as his blood was spilling on his face and chest and clothing. He said, Bismillahi wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah. In the name of Allah and through Allah and on the path of Rasulullah. O people, the son of the Jewess killed me, the son of Muljam killed me. Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. I swear by the Lord of the Kaaba, I have succeeded. Oh people, do not let him escape. The people were shocked. Could it be that Amir al-Mu'mineen has been killed, has truly been struck? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam then sat down. He began tying his wound. He began placing sand in that wound, and he said the following heart-breaking word. What did he say? He said, هذا ما وعد الله ورسوله. This is what Allah and His Messenger promised us, and Allah and His Messenger said the truth. حر قلبي لك يا أمير المؤمنين. I want you to picture the Imam in his prayer niche. The blood of Ali is flowing. The poet addresses him with heartbreaking lines on behalf of every believer. He says, يا خواد يا خواد المنايا وانا يا خواد المنايا من وقف يمك وانت الموت يرجف له سمع باسمه. He says, Ya Ali, how could Ibn Muljam stand beside you when you are the one whose name causes death to shake? Ya Ali, ya خوض المنايا من وقف يمك وانت الموت يرجف لو سمع باسمك. شلون السيف خضب شابك بدمك. How was the sword able to strike you and to cause your beard to be dyed with your blood? وظلت شيعتك وظلت شيعتك تنطم الخدين. As a result, Ya Ali, your Shi'as will continue to slap their cheeks as they warn you. Ajarakumullah. At that point the world changed. The earth began shaking. The oceans and the seas became agitated. The angels alayhimussalam's voices rose. The doors of the mosque alayhissalam, Jabrail was devastated, and so he called out in a loud voice that everyone who was awake could hear. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى. I swear by Allah, the pillars of the faith have been demolished. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى وانطمست والله نجوم السماء. The cousin of Muhammad al-Mustafa has been killed. Ali al-Murtada has been killed. The master of the successors has been killed. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. توجهوا إلى الله تعالى وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين والتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. فرج عنا يا الله. وأسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى to hasten the appearance of Sahib al-Zaman, to make us from his sincere followers and supporters, to forgive our sins, to heal the sick and to fulfill our needs. اللهم ارحم أمواتنا وأموات المؤمنين والمؤمنات لا سيما المنسيين الذين لا يذكرهم ذاكر، والشهداء العظام العلماء الكرام إلى أرواحهم جميعا وإلى أرواح أمواتكم وأمواتي لا سيما إلى أرواح والدي وأخي وحبيبي حسين. نبعث ثواب مجلسنا هذا وثواب الفاتحة تسبقها صلاة على محمد وآل محمد.